Nurse Elena Reyes found Sergeant Caleb Voss under bed 12 at 2:17 a.m., shaking so hard the metal frame rattled against the tile. 12 hours earlier, a surgeon had called him a coward in front of the ward because the decorated Marine could not stand when visitors entered. Now the military hospital was locked down. A black 9 named Atlas was growling at Caleb's door, and a blood-stained dog tag had appeared beneath the pillow, where no one had searched. Caleb's left hand, the only hand he could still control, kept reaching toward Elena's sleeve, like he recognized something he was terrified to say. But when the nurse knelt beside him, Atlas stopped growling and pressed his nose against an old scar on her wrist. Why would a war dog protect a broken man from everyone except the nurse they all ignored? Before this story unfolds, tell us where you are watching from tonight. Leave your country name in the comments, and if you believe in courage, loyalty, brave dogs, hidden heroes, and the quiet justice that finds people in the dark, subscribe to The Quiet Medic. The hallway outside Ward C always sounded different after midnight. During the day, Fort Astor Military Hospital carried the ordinary noise of recovery. Wheels squeaking under medication carts, physical therapists counting steps, nurses calling for saline, families whispering prayers outside closed doors. But after midnight, when the lights dimmed and the monitors became the loudest voices in the building, the place felt like it was holding its breath. Nurse Elena Reyes had learned to listen to that silence. It told her when a soldier was pretending to sleep. It told her when pain medication was wearing off before the chart said it should. It told her when shame was louder than injury. That night, shame lived in room 12. Sergeant Caleb Voss had been in Ward C for 3 weeks, though most of the hospital still spoke of him as if he were an inconvenience instead of a patient. He had come in from a veterans crisis unit after being found in an abandoned bus depot, curled behind a vending machine, clutching a torn Marine Corps field jacket and refusing to let anyone touch his left shoulder. His file said traumatic brain injury, nerve damage, severe burns along his back and ribs, chronic tremors, night terrors, selective mutism during episodes, combat-related post-traumatic stress. The doctors called it complicated. Some of the orderlies called it dramatic. Elena called it pain. She had seen men like Caleb before, though never one quite like him. 34 years old, Silver Star on record, 2 deployments erased under black ink, face still handsome beneath exhaustion. Eyes that looked as if they had spent years watching a door that never opened. He could walk on good days if the room was quiet and no one stood behind him. He could eat if the spoon was placed on his left side. He could speak in short sentences before noon. But after dark, something inside him folded. He stopped being a decorated Marine. He became a man waiting for the blast to come again. Elena knew that kind of waiting. Not because she had read it in a training manual, because 8 years earlier, before she wore white scrubs and soft shoes, she had worn sand-colored combat boots in a forward surgical team that nobody outside classified circles ever mentioned. She had been Corporal Elena Reyes then, combat medic, call sign Quiet, because in fire she did not scream, did not curse, did not waste breath. She worked with her jaw locked and both hands moving. Then one mission had ended in fire, blood, and a lie. She did not talk about it. Her service record had been sealed after an inquiry that never became public. To this hospital, she was just a civilian nurse with a calm voice, a scar around her wrist, and a habit of checking corners before she entered a room. That made Dr. Adrian Klein laugh. Klein was the chief trauma surgeon on Ward C, a man who wore rank without wearing a uniform. He had a voice polished smooth from years of committees and cameras, and eyes that hardened whenever a patient made him look ineffective. He liked clean wounds, obedient recovery, heroic speeches. Caleb gave him none of those things. "Your Marine is on the floor again," he told Elena at 12:43 a.m., not looking up from the tablet in his hand. Elena stood at the nurse's station, updating Caleb's pain notes. He is not my Marine. He is our patient. Klein smiled thinly. He is under the sink this time. Refused medication. Refused medication. Refused medication. Nearly bit an orderly. He flinched when the orderly grabbed his right arm. Then perhaps Sergeant Voss should remember. He is not on a battlefield. Elena looked at him then. Sometimes the body remembers before the mind does. That sounds poetic, Klein said. Not clinical. Before Elena could answer, a shout came from room 12. Not a cry, not a call. A sharp broken sound, like a man pulling himself out of a grave. Elena moved before anyone else did. By the time she reached the room, Caleb was wedged between the bed and wall, his breathing ragged, his right arm trapped against his chest, his left hand clawing at the tile. An overturned water cup spread beneath him. The monitor leads had popped loose and swung like thin snakes from the bedrail. Two orderlies stood in the doorway, uncertain and irritated. Sergeant Voss, Elena said softly, lowering herself to the floor. It's Reyes. You're in Ward C. You're safe. Caleb's eyes flicked toward her, but did not settle. His pupils were huge. Sweat darkened the collar of his hospital shirt. The scar tissue along his neck shone pale under the dim lamp. No lights, he whispered. I won't turn them on. No boots, no boots, she said. Just me. His breathing hitched. I'm going to move the IV line so it doesn't pull. That's all, one orderly muttered behind her. He does this every night. Elena did not turn. Step back. He needs restraints. He needs space. Klein arrived seconds later, robe over scrubs, annoyance already carved into his expression. Again. Caleb's eyes snapped toward the new voice. His whole body recoiled. His left hand jerked toward his chest, two fingers forming something like a fist, then opening, then closing again. Elena noticed. It was not random. It looked like a signal. Klein stepped into the room. Sergeant Voss, enough. You are disrupting the ward. Caleb's teeth chattered. Don, open it. Open what? Elena asked gently. But Klein spoke over her. There is nothing to open. There is no enemy here. There is no mission. There is only a grown man hiding under furniture. The words hit the room harder than a thrown tray. Caleb went still. Elena felt the shift immediately. A patient in panic still fought for air, still searched, still flinched. Caleb stopped all of it. His face emptied, his left hand lowered to the tile. For one terrible second, he looked dead while breathing. Elena turned to Klein. Leave. I beg your pardon. Leave the room. Klein's face reddened. Nurse Reyes, you do not give orders here. No, she said. But I do give care. And right now you are harming him. The orderlies froze. Nobody spoke to Klein like that. Not in front of staff. Not in Ward C. Klein leaned closer, voice dropping. You have no idea what that man cost this hospital. Elena's skin chilled. What does that mean? Before Klein could answer, a deep bark tore through the hallway. Every monitor seemed to pause. Another bark followed, lower, closer, furious. Elena stood. A black military working dog appeared at the far end of the corridor, pulling hard against a leash held by Colonel Mara Hale, the hospital commander. The dog's harness bore a faded patch. Atlas. His ears were sharp, his eyes fixed, his teeth visible. He was not barking at the ward. He was barking at room 12. Colonel Hale's face was pale with surprise. Klein, why is my dog trying to tear his way into your patient's room? Atlas lunged again. The leash snapped tight. Inside room 12, Caleb made a sound that was almost a sob. Elena looked down. The broken Marine was staring at the nine as if a ghost from the battlefield had found him. And on the floor beneath Caleb's trembling hand, half hidden by the bed skirt, something metal caught the hallway light. A dog tag, but it did not have Caleb's name on it. Elena saw the dog tag before anyone else moved. It lay beneath the edge of bed 12, slick with old grime, and something darker caught in the stamped letters. Caleb's fingers hovered over it but did not touch it, as if the small piece of metal could burn him. Atlas stopped barking. The change was immediate and unsettling. One moment the nine had been a black storm at the end of the leash. The next he stood perfectly still, ears forward, nose high, body locked in recognition. Colonel Hale tightened her grip. Atlas, down. The dog did not obey. Elena had worked around military dogs overseas. She knew the difference between aggression and alerting. Atlas was not trying to attack. He was trying to tell them something. Klein pushed past her. Get that animal out of my ward. Colonel Hale's eyes narrowed. This animal is assigned to my office after detecting contraband in recovery housing last month. He does not enter patient wards unless there is cause. He is upsetting my patient. Elena almost laughed at the lie. Caleb had been upset long before Atlas arrived, but she kept her eyes on the dog tag. Colonel, she said. I picked that up. Klein snapped. Do not contaminate potential evidence. Elena looked at him. Evidence of what? Silence. It lasted only a second, but it was enough. Colonel Hale heard it too. She stepped into the room, bringing Atlas with her. The dog moved slowly now, not toward Klein, not toward the bed, but toward Elena. His nose lowered. He sniffed the air near her left wrist. Elena stiffened. The scar there had faded to a pale rope around her skin. A souvenir from a field tournée she tightened too long while she kept working on someone else. She usually wore her watch over it, but tonight, while changing dressings, she had pushed the strap higher. Atlas inhaled once, then he whined. Caleb's face crumpled. No, he whispered. No, no, no. Elena knelt carefully. Caleb, do you know this dog? His mouth opened. Nothing came out. Klein moved toward the bed. Sergeant Voss is in no condition to answer questions. Atlas growled, not at Caleb, at Klein. The growl was soft, deep control. Colonel Hale shortened the leash but did not correct him. Her stare moved from Atlas to the surgeon. Dr. Klein, she said, step back. Klein's jaw tightened. This is absurd. Step back. He did. Elena used a glove from her pocket to lift the dog tag by its chain. The stamped name was scratched but readable. M. Dane. Below it, a service number. Below that, blood type O negative. Caleb shut his eyes. Elena's breath caught. Mason Dane. The name left her mouth before she could stop it. Colonel Hale looked at her. You know that name? Elena swallowed. He was Staff Sergeant Mason Dane. Years ago. Klein's expression changed again, too quick to hide. It was not surprise. It was calculation. Caleb started rocking slightly under the bed. Don't open it, he said again. Elena lowered the tag into a sterile cup from the bedside cart. Open what, Caleb? His left hand lifted shakily. He pointed toward the wall. At first Elena thought he meant the window. Then Atlas turned. The nine moved to the far corner of the room, where a low storage cabinet sat beneath the television mount. It had been there since before Caleb arrived, one of those built-in hospital cabinets nobody used because the hinges stuck and the lock was missing. Atlas sniffed along the bottom seam. Then he sat. Elena felt something cold move through her chest. Military dogs did not sit like that for no reason. Not trained dogs, not dogs attached to commanders. Colonel Hale saw it too. What is inside that cabinet? Klein answered too fast. Old linens, maintenance supplies, nothing relevant. Elena looked at him. Then you won't mind if we check? This is still my ward and my hospital, Hale said. Klein's mouth closed. The colonel nodded to Alina. Open it. The cabinet door stuck, just as Elena expected. She pulled once, then again. The wood groaned. Dust rose. The smell came out first. Old paper, antiseptic, and mildew. Inside were folded blankets, a cracked plastic basin, and a gray document pouch sealed with red tape. Elena's hand froze. The tape was stamped with a warning she had not seen in years. Restricted medical field report. Do not duplicate. Her heart began to pound. Klein stepped forward. That should not be here. Colonel Hale's voice went flat. No, it should not. Alina lifted the pouch. It was heavier than paper alone. Something inside slid against the corner. Atlas rose, tail rigid, eyes fixed on it. Caleb made another sound under the bed. Alina set the pouch on the mattress and looked at the seal. It had already been cut once, then pressed back together. Hale noticed. Open it. Klein raised his hand. Colonel, I strongly advise against allowing the nurse to handle classified material. Elena felt the old title inside her like a buried blade. Not nurse, medic, quiet. Her fingers trembled once, then steadied. I handled worse in worse places, she said. The room went silent. Klein looked at her as though seeing her clearly for the first time. You? Elena did not answer. She opened the pouch. Inside was a stack of copied medical field notes, a flash drive, and a cloth patch folded into quarters. The patch was faded, edges burned, a black cross, a white ring, and beneath them, stitched in small letters, quiet. Elena could not breathe. That patch had been cut from her uniform 8 years ago, in the aftermath of a mission. The official report said she had abandoned. A mission where Staff Sergeant Mason Dane died. A mission where Caleb Voss had disappeared for 46 hours and returned unable to speak. She looked down at him. His eyes were open now, fixed on the patch. With terrible effort, Caleb lifted his left hand from the floor, 2 fingers to his brow. A broken salute. Then his arm collapsed. The monitors began screaming, and Dr. Klein reached for the flash drive. Elena caught Klein's wrist before his fingers touched the flash drive. The movement was instinctive, fast, hard, not nurse-like, not soft. For half a second, the room saw the woman she used to be. Klein's eyes flashed with pain and surprise. Let go. Elena did not. Why do you want it? I am securing sensitive material. You didn't even know it was here. I said, let go. Atlas growled again. This time the sound filled the room. Colonel Hale stepped between them, one hand raised. Both of you, stop. Elena released Klein, but she slid the flash drive behind the stack of papers with her other hand. Klein saw, so did Hale. Caleb's monitors shrieked faster. His oxygen level dipped. His eyes rolled unfocused beneath the bed frame. Elena's anger vanished beneath training. Move, she said. Klein did not move. Elena shoved past him and dropped to the floor. Caleb, listen to me. You are in the hospital. You are not in the compound. You are not under fire. At the word compound, Klein's head turned. Elena noticed, but she kept her voice on Caleb. You hear my voice? Count with me. 1 breath in, hold, out slow. Caleb gasped, a thin broken pull of air. His left hand twitched near his chest. His right side remained curled against him, useless from the old nerve injury. Atlas lowered himself to his belly and crawled closer. Colonel, Elena said, if he accepts the dog, let Atlas come. Hale hesitated. He has not been cleared for direct patient contact. He's the only thing in this room Caleb recognizes without fear. Klein snapped, absolutely not. Caleb's oxygen dropped again. Hale loosened the leash. Atlas moved. No one spoke as the 9 slid halfway under the bed and pressed his head against Caleb's left shoulder. Caleb flinched once, then froze. His fingers found the dog's harness. They curled weakly into the strap. His breathing changed, not calm, not healed, but anchored. Elena leaned closer. That's it. Hold on to Atlas. You're here. You came back. Caleb's lips moved. She bent lower. Dane, he whispered. I know, Elena said, though she did not know enough. I saw the tag. Caleb shook his head, eyes wet. Not dead there. Elena went still. Klein spoke sharply. He is delirious. Caleb's fingers tightened on Atlas' harness. I'm not dead there. Elena's pulse thundered in her ears. Where, Caleb? But he had gone too far. His body trembled, then sagged as the medication and exhaustion pulled him down. Elena checked his pulse, adjusted his oxygen, reconnected the leads, and stayed beside him until the monitor softened into a steady rhythm. Nobody moved. Finally, Colonel Hale said, Dr. Klein, my office. Now, Klein's smile returned, thin as a blade. Of course. Elena stood slowly. The pouch stays with the patient. The pouch comes with me, Hale said. Elena turned toward her. The colonel's expression was not cruel. It was guarded. Nurse Reyes, if this material is what it appears to be, it cannot remain in an unsecured room. Then secure the room. Klein laughed once. You have no authority to demand that. Elena looked at Caleb, asleep under the bed with one hand still tangled in Atlas' harness. He was terrified someone would open that cabinet, not because of what's inside, because of who would come for it. Hale followed her gaze. The truth of it sat between them. Caleb had hidden under the bed like a child escaping monsters. But the monster had not been memory alone. Someone had given him a reason to fear the present. Hale's voice lowered. Sergeant Voss is under my protection until I understand what is happening. Klein's face hardened. You are taking medical advice from a traumatized patient and a nurse with an undisclosed conflict of interests. Careful, Hales. No, Colonel, you should be careful. Nurse Reyes just admitted connection to restricted material hidden in a patient room. For all we know, she planted it. Elena felt the accusation land, not because it was true, but because it echoed something old. 8 years ago, men in clean uniforms had asked why she survived when others had not. Why her field notes did not match the official timeline. Why she could not produce the evacuation code. Why she had administered morphine to a dying interpreter after orders said no narcotics during extraction. They called it an inquiry. It felt like burial. Colonel Hale studied Elena. Did you hide this pouch? No. Did you know it was here? No. Did you know Sergeant Voss before his admission? Elena hesitated. Honesty hurt. I knew of him. Not like this. On our last mission, he was attached to the unit as security. I treated him after the first blast. After that, my memory is incomplete. Klein seized on it. Convenient. Atlas lifted his head from under the bed and growled without standing. Hale made a decision. Room 12 is restricted. Sergeant Voss remains here. Atlas stays outside the door. Nurse Reyes remains assigned unless I say otherwise. Dr. Klein, you are relieved from direct care of this patient pending review. Klein's face strained. You cannot be serious. I am. He turned to Elena, voice low enough that only she heard. You should have let the dead stay dead. Then he walked out. Elena felt the words like a hand around her throat. Colonel Hale took the pouch, but not before Elena saw one page slide loose, a photocopy field triage form. The handwriting was hers. At the bottom, beside Mason Dana's name, someone had written a single sentence in red ink. Nurse Reyes abandoned subject during extraction. Elena stared at it. She had no memory of writing anything after the second blast. But beneath that accusation, in tiny letters almost erased by copying, was another note. Not red ink, pencil. Left-handed, she carried him until Klein ordered the door sealed. Elena's eyes moved to Caleb under the bed. Left-handed, the only hand he could still use. And for the first time in 8 years, she understood that her disgrace might have been built over a truth someone had buried alive. By dawn, Wordsey knew enough to whisper and not enough to whisper and not enough to understand. That was how rumor worked in hospitals. It moved faster than infection and left the same fever behind. A restricted pouch found in room 12. The commander's 9 guarding the door. Dr. Klein removed from a case. Nurse Reyes seen holding a burned combat patch with her own call sign on it. By 6:00 a.m., nobody called Elena, just a quiet nurse. They watched her like a question. She ignored them as long as she could. Caleb was still asleep under the bed. Elena had tried twice to coax him back onto the mattress, but each time his pulse jumped and his fingers dug into Atlas' harness. The dog had remained half in, half out beneath the frame for hours, patient in a way humans rarely managed. Colonel Hale finally allowed it, posting 2 military police officers outside the room, with strict instructions that nobody entered without her approval. Klein did not return. That worried Elena more than if he had. Men like Klein did not retreat when cornered. They repositioned. At 6:38, Colonel Hale came back carrying the gray pouch in a locked evidence case. Her face looked older than it had the night before. "Elena," she said, "not Nurse Reyes." Elena noticed. Hale nodded toward the hallway. "A word." Elena looked at Caleb. Atlas raised his head. "I'll stay in sight," Hale said. They stepped just outside the room. The NPU straightened. Hale spoke quietly. "I reviewed the documents with security. Most are copies. Some are altered. The flash drive is encrypted. I sent it to a forensic tech I trust." "Altered how?" "Timelines, medication logs, evacuation sequence." Hale paused. "Your name appears repeatedly." "I expected that. I expected that too." Hale studied her. "You do not defend yourself very quickly." Elena looked through the narrow glass panel in Caleb's door. His face was half hidden by shadow. His left hand still held Atlas' harness like a lifeline. "When you spend years believing you might have failed people," Elena said, "defense starts to feel like disrespecting the dead." Hale's expression softened, but only slightly. Commanders did not have the luxury of showing too much. "Tell me what you remember." Elena closed her eyes. The hallway disappeared. For a moment she smelled smoke instead of disinfectant. "Operation Lantern Room," she said. 8 years ago, a medical extraction near the border. Officially, it never happened. We were sent to pull out an informant and 2 injured contractors from a compound after local militia turned. I was attached as combat medic. Mason Dane led security. Caleb Voss was on his team. There was a 9-unit too, but... She looked at Atlas. Hale followed her gaze. Atlas was in that theater, younger then. His handler was killed later that year. His early deployment file is incomplete. Elena's stomach tightened. "I remember a blast at the East Gate, then triage inside a storage room. Dane had shrapnel in his abdomen. Caleb had burns and nerve trauma, but kept moving. Klein was there as field surgeon." Hale's eyes sharpened. "Dr. Klein was on that mission?" "Yes. He wasn't chief then. He was attached to Special Operations Surgical Support. That is not in his public record." "No," Elena said. "It wouldn't be." "What happened after triage?" Elena pressed her thumb against the scar on her wrist. "We were supposed to extract through a service tunnel. Someone changed the route. There was a second blast. I remember carrying Dane. He was alive. He kept asking for his tag because he wanted his sister notified. Caleb was behind me. Klein was ahead at the blast door." Her voice thinned. And then nothing clear. A light, someone's screaming not to seal it. My wrist caught under Dane's vest strap when I fell. When I woke up 2 days later, they told me Dane died before extraction. They told me Caleb was missing, presumed captured. They told me I had abandoned the triage room during the second attack. Hale was silent. Elena opened her eyes. I signed a statement while medicated. I don't even remember reading it. Hale's jaw tightened. That is not a statement. That exploitation. Elena almost smiled. Try telling that to a board that has already decided the dead can't argue. Inside the room, Caleb stirred. Atlas immediately lifted his head. Elena turned back, but Hale gently touched her arm. One more thing. What? The page with the pencil note? The one saying you carried Dane until Klein ordered the door sealed. Elena felt her pulse jump. You saw it? You saw it? Yes, it was nearly hidden under the copied accusation. Forensics thinks it was written years after the original document, likely by someone with impaired motor control. Caleb? Likely. Elena looked back at him. Hale continued. If he wrote that, he has been trying to correct the record. My bay for years. Then, why hide it in his own room? My bay, he didn't. The words hung there. Elena slowly turned. Hale's face was grim. Room 12 was renovated 6 months ago. Before Voss arrived, that cabinet should have been empty. Who assigned Caleb to this room? Hale did not answer right away. Elena already knew. Klein, she said. Hale nodded once. He personally requested it, citing noise control. A cold thread pulled tight inside Elena. Klein had not stumbled upon Caleb. He had placed him beside the buried file. Why? To watch him, to trigger him, to see whether he remembered. A shout came from inside room 12. Elena spun. Caleb was awake, no longer under the bed. He had dragged himself halfway out, eyes wide, left hand reaching toward the cabinet. Atlas was on his feet, barking toward not the door, the window. Elena ran in. A dark smear marked the outside glass. At first she thought it was dirt. Then she saw the shape. 3 letters written backward from the other side. Run. The NPS rushed to the hallway window, but whoever had written it was already gone. Caleb stared at the message and began to cry without sound. Then he whispered the first full sentence Elena had ever heard from him. He knows I remembered. Colonel Hale ordered the ward sealed within 3 minutes. No one entered. No one left. Security checked stairwells, service corridors, supply rooms, roof access, and the narrow maintenance ledge outside Caleb's window. They found a smudged glove print on the exterior frame and a hospital visitor badge snapped in half near the emergency exit. The badge belonged to nobody in the system. That was the worst kind of evidence. Proof someone had come close. Proof someone had planned well enough to disappear. Caleb sat on the floor with his back to the bed, knees drawn up. Atlas pressed against his side. Elena sat across from him, close enough to help, far enough not to trap him. His crying had stopped, but the tears remained on his face, drying in thin lines through stubble. Hale stood near the door, speaking into her phone with clipped restraint. I do not care if Dr. Klein is in surgery. Find him. Now. Elena kept her voice low. Caleb, who wrote that message? He stared at the window. Was it Klein? His jaw worked. No sound. Atlas nudged his left hand. Caleb breathed in sharply, as if the dog had pulled him back from underwater. Klein doesn't run, he whispered. Elena leaned forward slightly. Who runs? Caleb's eyes shifted toward her scarred wrist. People he leaves behind. The answer moved through Elena like ice. Someone else from Lantern Room was alive. Someone who knew Klein. Someone afraid. Someone close enough to reach the hospital window at dawn. Hale ended the call and turned. Klein left the building at 5:52 a.m. Security camera caught him in the East Garage. He signed out for an emergency consult that does not exist. Elena's stomach sank. Can you track him? Base police are trying. Hale's gaze moved to Caleb. But if he is connected to a classified operation, he might have help we do not know about. Caleb made a broken sound at the word help. Elena understood. Men like Klein always had help. Official signatures, missing footage, reports altered by hands that stayed clean. She looked at Caleb. You said he knows you remember. What did you remember? Caleb shook his head. Caleb, I need you to tell me before he comes back. His eyes flashed with terror. Elena softened immediately. Not everything, just one piece. One piece we can hold on to. He swallowed. Atlas rested his head on Caleb's thigh. The Marine's left hand shook violently as it lifted. Elena thought he was pointing at the cabinet again, but his finger moved past it, toward the television mounted on the wall. Screen, he whispered. Hale stepped closer. The television? Caleb shook his head. Not TV screen. Briefing screen. Elena's breath slowed. She waited. He squeezed his eyes shut. After first blast. Inside, storage room. Dane alive. Reyes working. Klein talking on radio. What did he say? Elena asked. Caleb's voice became small, almost childlike. Package compromised. Witness unstable. Seal if needed. Hale's expression hardened. Witness? Caleb nodded toward Elena. Elena felt the floor tilt. I was the witness. No. His eyes opened, shining with grief. Dane was. A long silence followed. Mason Dane had not been simply security. He had seen something, heard something, enough that Klein or whoever controlled him wanted him silenced. Elena whispered, what did Mason know? Caleb's breathing sped up. Atlas pressed harder against him. Hale raised a hand, warning Elena not to push. But Caleb spoke. Medical convoy wasn't hit by militia. Elena stopped breathing. What? His left hand curled into a fist. Beacon changed. Our beacon. They sent us into wrong grid. Dane found it. Said surgeon signed off. Said wounded contractors were already dead before extraction. Elena's mind fought the words. Operation Lantern Room had been built around rescuing injured contractors and an informant. If they were already dead, then the mission had not been rescue. It had been clean up. Klein had been the medical officer. Dane discovered it. Sergeant Voss, are you saying Dr. Klein falsified casualty status and altered extraction coordinates? Caleb shook his head violently. Not alone. The room seemed to contract. Elena asked, who else? His mouth opened. Then the lights went out. The entire ward dropped into darkness. For 1 second, there was no sound except monitors switching to battery backup. Then Atlas exploded. He lunged toward the door so hard Hale barely caught the leash. Someone shouted in the hallway. Metal crashed. A patient screamed from another room. Elena reached for Caleb. But he was already moving. Not away from danger. Under the bed. His body folded with practiced terror, dragging one useless side. Left hand clawing for the shadow beneath the frame. Elena. Hale shouted. The emergency lights flickered red. In that pulsing darkness, Elena saw a shape in the doorway. Not an MP. Not a nurse. A man in maintenance coveralls stood just beyond the threshold. Face hidden by a surgical mask, one gloved hand holding a syringe. Atlas hit him like a black missile. The syringe skittered across the floor, spinning until it stopped against Elena's shoe. She looked down. The label had been scraped off, but the dosage marking remained. Enough sedative to stop Caleb's heart. From under the bed, Caleb whispered. He sent the quiet man. Elena picked up the syringe. And for the first time that night, fear gave way to fury. The man in maintenance coveralls did not make it past the nurse's station. Atlas had him pinned before the NPS reached the doorway. One massive paw on his shoulder, teeth bared an inch from his throat. The man screamed once, then went wisely still. Elena stayed with Caleb. She wanted to run into the hall, wanted to see the face beneath the mask, wanted to demand names until the whole buried mission cracked open. But Caleb was under the bed again, and this time, his breathing had the thin edge of collapse. So she lowered herself to the floor. "It's Reyes," she said. "The syringe is gone." Atlas stopped him. "You're alive." Caleb's eyes were open, in the dark, beneath the frame. Them black, then red again. "Quiet," he whispered. Elena froze. Nobody in Ward C called her that. Not anymore. Her throat tightened. "What did you say?" His left hand crawled toward her wrists. He did not grab. He touched the scar with two trembling fingers. "Quiet," carried Dane. The room blurred. Elena fought it. Nurses did not break down on the floor beside patients. Medics did not shake when the wounded needed them. But the name, the call sign, the memory of Mason Dane's weight across her shoulders, the heat, the door, the shouting, it all came back in pieces sharp enough to cut. You did." The words were not comfort. They were testimony. Outside, Hale's voice cracked through the chaos, commanding lights, backup, lockdown, evidence. Someone read the attacker his rights. Someone else called for medical security. Elena stayed on the floor. "Caleb," she said, "I need the rest." He shook his head. "I know it hurts." His eyes squeezed shut. "I know they broke something in you and then punished you for bleeding from it. But Mason Dane's name is in that pouch. Your words are in that pouch. My patch is in that pouch. Klein sent a man with enough sedative to kill you. Whatever you remember is no longer just memory. It is the only thing keeping him from burying us again." Caleb breathed through his teeth. Atlas returned to the doorway, leash dragging, muzzle stained with a smear of the attacker's blood. He did not come fully inside. He stood guard. Caleb looked at him. Atlas was there. He whispered. Elena turned. Hale, who had just entered, went still. Caleb's gaze fixed on the 9. Different handler. Younger dog. He found the tunnel after the second blast. Scratched door. Barked and barked. Elena's memory flashed, barking on the other side of metal. A sound she had thought was ringing in her ears. Caleb continued. Each word pulled from him like shrapnel. Klein said contamination risk, said fire spreading. Said Dane dead. You screamed he had pulse. You put your hand in the seam. Elena looked at her wrist. The scar, not from a vest strap alone. From the blast door. Her hand had been trapped when she tried to stop it closing. Caleb's voice broke. God, you still held Dane's collar. Elena saw it then. Mason's face gray with blood loss. Her own knees sliding on dust. Klein beyond the narrowing gap, face lit by flame. Caleb on the floor, half burned, dragging himself toward her. Atlas barking from the tunnel. The door grinding shut, and her own voice. Don't seal it. He's alive. He's alive. Then pain. Then nothing. Hale's eyes were wet, though her posture remained rigid. Why did the report say Dane died before extraction? Caleb swallowed. Because Klein made me sign, Elena whispered. You sign. He flinched as if struck. She immediately regretted the pain in her voice. Caleb, no. I'm not blaming you. But he was already folding inward. Right hand gone. Pain. Morphine. Black room. Klein said if I told Ray's court-martial. Said she disobeyed orders. Said Dane's family lose benefits if mission exposed. Said Atlas put down for attacking officer. His breath hitched. Said heroes stay quiet. Elena felt hatred rise in her. Clean and dangerous. Klein had not only buried evidence, he had turned honor into a weapon. He had used Caleb's loyalty against him, Mason's family against him, Atlas' life against him, Elena's name against all of them. Hale crouched slowly, bringing herself closer to Caleb's level. Sergeant Voss, listen to me. I cannot undo what was done to you, but I can open an investigation that does not report to Klein. I can protect you now. Caleb stared at her, unbelieving. Men who had been betrayed by authority did not heal because authority returned with a softer voice. Elena knew that. She touched the floor, palm up, not reaching for him, offering. You protected me all these years, she said, even when they called you unstable. Even when they locked your words inside your own body, you hid proof in the only place your fear kept sending you. Under the bed, near the cabinet, where nobody thought to look because they were too busy laughing at you. Caleb's eyes filled again. You were not hiding because you were weak, Elena said. You were guarding the dead. His mouth trembled. For a moment, he looked like he might finally crawl out. The phone rang in Hale's pocket. She answered. Her face changed as she listened. Elena knew before Hale spoke that another door had opened. The colonel lowered the phone. Forensics assessed part of the flash drive. Klein's name was there. So were evacuation logs, altered coordinates, and a video file recovered from a damaged helmet camera. Elena's breath caught. Whose camera? Hale looked at Caleb. Mason Dane's. Caleb made a sound so broken it silenced the hallway. Hale continued, voice low. The video is corrupted, but the first frame is clear. What is it? Elena asked. Hale looked at her wrist. It shows you holding the blast door open. They played the video in Colonel Hale's office because room 12 was too fragile for ghosts. Elena did not want to leave Caleb, but he surprised them all by insisting. Not with confidence, not with strength. His voice shook so badly the first attempt failed. But when Hale said the file could wait, Caleb ripped Atlas' harness and whispered, no more waiting. So they brought him in a wheelchair before sunrise fully broke over Fort Astor. Atlas walked at his side. Elena followed with one hand on the chair, not pushing unless he needed it. The hallway watched them pass. The same orderlies who had once rolled their eyes now stepped back. The same nurses who had whispered now fell silent. One young resident began to speak, saw Caleb's face, and lowered his eyes. At the elevators, Caleb's hand started shaking harder. Elena leaned close. We can stop. He stared ahead. Door opens. Yes. Door closes. I will open again. His jaw clenched. Promise? Elena's answer came from a place older than nursing, older than shame. I promise. Atlas entered first. Caleb followed. When the elevator door slid shut, Caleb stopped breathing for 3 seconds. Elena counted softly. 1, 2, 3. He inhaled. Hale's office had been turned into a temporary review room. A laptop sat on the desk. 2 military investigators stood near the wall, quiet and expressionless. Hale dismissed them with a look. This begins with us, she said. Elena appreciated that. Some truths could not survive if too many hands touched them too early. Hale pressed play. The screen filled with static, then smoke. For a moment, nothing made sense. The camera angle tilted sharply, mounted on Mason Dane's helmet as he stumbled through a corridor lit by fire. Audio cracked. Someone coughed. Someone shouted coordinates. Then the image lurched into a storage room. Elena saw herself, younger, dirt across her face, blood soaking both sleeves, the black cross and white wing patch visible on her shoulder. Quiet. She was kneeling over Mason Dane, one hand deep in a wound, the other reaching for a pressure bandage. Caleb lay against the wall behind her, half his uniform burned away, eyes open, trying to move. Klein appeared at the edge of the frame, not frantic, not afraid, composed. He held a radio near his mouth. The audio distorted, then cleared. Subject Dane is non-viable, Klein said. Elena's recorded voice cut through. He has a pulse. Klein looked down at her. You are ordered to withdraw. I said. He has a pulse. The camera shook as Mason turned his head. His breathing was awful, wet and shallow. Then Mason spoke. Elena, he rasped. The real Elena stopped breathing. On the screen, her younger self leaned closer. Save your air. No, Mason's bloody hand lifted. Something glinted between his fingers. Beacon changed. Klein signed. Klein's head snapped toward him. Mason forced the object toward Elena. A dog tag chain. No, not just a tag. A tiny data wafer taped to the back of it. Klein moved fast. The image blurred as the room shook with another explosion. Caleb screamed. Elena threw herself over Mason. The camera struck the floor, angle sideways now, showing boots, smoke, sparks. Atlas' bark erupted somewhere beyond the wall. Then came the sound Elena had carried in nightmares without knowing what it was. A blast door alarm. Red light flooded the frame. Klein shouted, "Seal it." Elena's younger voice rose, raw with fury. "No, we are inside." Klein said something too low to hear. Another voice answered on radio, distorted, commanding, "Seal and sanitize." Hale paused the video. "Nobody moved. Seal and sanitize," she repeated. Caleb had gone white. Elena's hands were cold. Hale rewound the audio, isolated the radio channel, played it again. The voice was roughened by static, but the words were unmistakable. Seal and sanitize. Hale's face looked carved from stone. That order did not come from Klein. Elena stared at the frozen frame. Klein at the door. Elena on the floor. Mason alive. Caleb reaching. Atlas somewhere unseen but barking like judgment. Who gave it? Elena asked. Hale did not answer immediately. She pulled a personnel archive onto the screen. Operation Lantern Room. Command approvals. Redacted names. All authorization codes. A medical evacuation override. One signature remained visible because someone, somewhere, had missed it. Mara V. Hale. The office went silent. Elena turned slowly. Hale looked as shocked as they were. "I did not give that order," she said, but her voice had lost command. It was not weak. It was horrified. Caleb began to shake. Elena stepped between him and the desk without thinking. Hale looked at her, then at Caleb. "I was stateside that week. I was deputy operations officer, but my credentials were used after a system breach. I reported it. The report disappeared." Klein's trap widened in Elena's mind. Not just her, not just Caleb, not just Caleb. Had been useful too. Her name on the order, her silence ensured by ignorance. Her future command built over a signature she did not know had been stolen. Atlas suddenly growled. Not at Hale, at the office door. Before anyone moved, the handle turned. Dr. Adrian Klein walked in with two base legal officers behind him, and a calm smile on his face. "Colonel Hale," he said, "step away from the computer." Elena's body went still. Klein's gaze moved to Caleb in the wheelchair, then to Atlas, then to Elena. "You should all understand," he said, "that viewing classified material without authorization is a federal offense." Hale stood slowly. "So is attempted murder." Klein's smile faded, only slightly. "You mean the unfortunate incident with an unstable maintenance contractor?" "I heard. Tragic." Caleb whispered, "Quiet man." Klein looked at him. "Sergeant Voss, your delusions have hurt enough people." Elena felt Caleb shrinking behind her, and that was when Atlas moved. He did not attack. He walked to Klein, stopped inches from his polished shoes, and dropped something from his mouth. A strip of cloth, dark blue, torn from the attacker's coveralls. Stuck to it was a hospital access card. Klein's access card. The legal officers looked down. Klein's face finally changed, and Caleb, trembling so hard the wheelchair shook, lifted his left hand and pointed at the man who had buried them all. He sealed the door, Caleb said. No one spoke after Caleb accused Dr. Klein. Not because they doubted him, because truth, when it finally stands upright after years of being beaten down, makes even powerful people afraid to breathe. Klein recovered first. Men like him always did. His face smoothed, his shoulders settled. He looked not at Caleb, but at the legal officers. You are witnessing a psychological episode, he said. This patient has documented trauma, paranoia, and memory fragmentation. Nurse Reyes has a personal motive to validate his delusions. Colonel Hale has compromised the integrity of restricted evidence by Atlas barked once. The sound cracked through the office. Klein stopped. Elena had never seen him afraid before, not openly, but fear moved through him in a flicker, the eyes tightening, the throat working, the half-step backward from the dog who had carried his access card into the room like a verdict. Colonel Hale reached for the card with a tissue. Dr. Klein, where is your badge? Klein did not look down. Misplaced when? This morning, before or after the man carrying unmarked lethal sedative entered a restricted ward. His mouth hardened. You should choose your accusations carefully. I am. Hale turned to one of the legal officers. Call base police. Dr. Klein is not to leave. The officer hesitated. That hesitation told Alina plenty. Klein still had influence. My bay, not enough to win. Enough to slow. Enough to poison. Caleb saw it too. His breathing changed. Panic rose in him like floodwater. His left hand curled against his chest. The wheelchair trembled beneath him. Elena crouched beside him. Stay with me. Hale, close it. Caleb whispered. No doors are closing. He always closes it. Klein's voice softened into something almost kind, and that was worse than anger. Sergeant, you have suffered enough. Let us get you back to your room. We can medicate you. Stop this before you embarrass yourself further. Caleb flinched. Don't speak to him like that. Klein looked at her. Call what? Nurse Reyes? Will you accuse me too? Will you rewrite your failure into heroism? The word hit. Failure. For 8 years, Elena had carried that word like shrapnel near the heart. It had shaped how she walked into rooms, how softly she spoke, how quickly she accepted blame. It had kept her from wearing medals, from calling old friends, from visiting Mason Dane's grave, because she did not know if she deserved to stand there. But now she had seen the video. She had seen her own hand in the blast door. She had heard herself refuse to abandon the wounded. She had heard Caleb's broken testimony. Some lies survive because the innocent keep lowering their heads. Alina raised hers. I failed one thing, she said. I failed to remember that a coward with authority is still a coward. Klein's face darkened. Hale stepped between them. Enough, but Caleb was staring at the pause video on the laptop. His eyes fixed on Mason Dane's frozen hand, on the dog tag, on the tiny wafer taped behind it. Tag, he whispered. Elena turned. What? Caleb's left hand shook violently as he pointed toward the evidence case. Dane's tag. Not just copy. Real tag. Hale opened the case and removed the sterile cup containing the dog tag found beneath Caleb's pillow. The metal clinked softly. Elena's heart began to pound. In the video, Mason had tried to hand her the tag because it carried a data wafer. But the tag in the cup looked thicker than it should. Hale saw it too. Klein lunged. Atlas intercepted. The dog did not bite. He slammed into Klein's legs, knocking him sideways into the desk. The legal officers shouted. Hale drew her sidearm but held fire. Elena grabbed the evidence cup before it hit the floor. Klein scrambled up, no longer calm. That's classified property. No, Elena said. It is Mason Dane's last words. She snapped the tag under the edge of the desk with more force than precision. The old metal casing split. A tiny wafer slid into her palm. Hale took it and plugged it into an isolated reader attached to the laptop. Klein stopped fighting. That was how Elena knew the war was over. The screen loaded slowly. Corrupted folders appeared first. Audio fragments, coordinate logs, medical status reports. Then a video file opened. Mason Dane's face filled the screen, close and pale, recorded before the blast. He was sitting in the storage room, helmet camera removed, speaking directly into it, while gunfire thudded somewhere far away. If this is recovered, Mason said, voice strained. Staff Sergeant Mason Dane, United States Marine Corps, Operation Lantern Room. Casualty report falsified. Contractors were deceased prior to mission launch. Beacon was intentionally altered to route medical team into compromised grid. Dr. Adrian Klein confirmed non-viable status before deployment and proceeded under sealed orders. A medic, call sign Quiet, attempted to save survivors. Sergeant Caleb Voss witnessed command breach. If we do not make it out, protect Rise. Protect Voss. Do not let them write this as cowardice. Elena pressed one hand to her mouth. On the screen, Mason swallowed hard. Caleb, if you hear this, brother, you did not leave me. Rise, you carried me. I felt it. Tell my sister I was not alone. The video glitched. Then Mason added one final sentence. The order used Colonel Hale's credentials, but the voice was Klein's. He routed it through command override. The room seemed to exhale years of poison. Klein sank into the chair behind him. Not from guilt, from calculation collapsing. Hale's face was white with fury. Dr. Adrian Klein, you are relieved of duty and detained pending charges of conspiracy, falsification of military medical records, obstruction, and attempted murder. Get him out of my office. This time the legal officers did not hesitate. As they took Klein by the arms, he looked at Elena one last time. You think this ends anything? Elena looked at Caleb, at Atlas, at Mason's frozen face on the screen. No, she said. It begins the part where everyone hears them. Klein was let out. No applause followed. Real justice rarely arrives with music. It comes with shaking hands, ugly paperwork, reopened graves, and people learning how to breathe after years underground. Caleb began to sob. Elena knelt before him, but he did not hide this time. He gripped Atlas' harness, bowed over the dog's neck, and cried like a man whose silence had finally been given back to him. Hale stood by the window, shoulders rigid, tears running freely now. She had lost trust in her own name that morning and found a duty larger than reputation. When the sun finally rose, Warsey gathered in the hallway. No one had ordered them there. Nurses, orderlies, patients in wheelchairs, and P.S. residents who had once whispered too much and known too little. They stood as Caleb was wheeled back toward room 12. He looked terrified. Then he saw Elena beside him. Atlas walked ahead not as a weapon, but as witness. At room 12, Caleb stopped. The bed waited inside. The same bed he had hidden under. The same shadows. The same cabinet. The same room where they had mistaken survival for weakness. Elena bent close. We can move you to another room. Caleb looked at the bed. His breath shook. Then he lifted his left hand, slowly, painfully, 2 fingers to his brow, a salute, not to the officers, not to the crowd, not to the hospital that had humiliated him, to Elena Reyes, the quiet medic who had carried a dying Marine until the door crushed her hand. Elena's eyes filled. She returned the salute, and in the hallway, one by one, Every soldier who could stand stood. Some heroes do not come home whole. Some hide beneath beds, inside silence, behind trembling hands, waiting for one person to believe the pain has a reason. Caleb Voss was broken, but he was never a coward. Elena Reyes was blamed, but she was never guilty. And at last the war dog remembered what people tried to erase. If this story moved you, subscribe to The Quiet Medic and honor the quiet heroes still waiting to be seen.